talking to Kris Jones right now. He's an expert on social media and search. And Kris, I would really like to know what differences are they between social media in Germany and the US?
It's a great question. I think that social media is a different type of medium than other forms of marketing and advertising. And I really believe that it doesn't matter if you're in Germany or the United States or somewhere else in the world. Social media is about being part of conversations and adding value instead of selling. So one of the points that I made yesterday in my masterclass was this idea that as a social media marketer, we need to stop selling. We need to start listening, and we need to become part of conversations. And we need to be thinking as marketers, whether you're in Germany or the US, which is where I'm from, about how you could add value to conversations, how you could solve problems that your customers might be facing. And that the more that you could become a value add to that conversation, the more likely it is that that person will end up doing business with you.
That sounds really good, but I can imagine that this is maybe difficult to sell to companies because they are really sold on selling their stuff and not adding value to conversations, right?
Yeah, I think most businesses are failing in social media across the world. And I believe that social media is more about connecting with the customer. So it more resembles, like, say, television advertising, where there's a story that's told. So there's a beginning of a TV commercial and an end. And hopefully, if it's effective, as the TV commercial goes on, you become more attached to the brand. Similarly, with social media, there's an opportunity to be part of a conversation, to create an emotional connection with the other person. Ultimately, it's a different form of advertising. I guess if you want to compare it to something, maybe television. But you cannot use the sell, sell, sell. You know, as I said, you need to stop selling and start listening, and then thrust yourself into the conversation.
So how can companies add value to the conversation? Through information or entertainment? What's the better approach?
I think, entertainment, I think that first you need to be present, meaning that you need to be always listening. So when your brand is mentioned, or there's an opportunity to answer someone's question or to provide them with information, valuable information, you need to have a strategy that creates presence so that you could be part of those conversations. It's not about pushing out messages to buy my stuff. It's more about how do you solve people's problems. And if you build a good relationship with them, they'll end up potentially buying your product or service.
But how can you measure the performance of that so that the companies really see, okay, great, that works?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot about building a great brand. I think that's what social media provides us with, the ability to position how people think about the level of service we have as businesses. But in terms of measuring it, I think that you could do it quantitatively and qualitatively. Quantitatively, you could look for brand mentions and measure how long it took for your team, your social media team, to respond and to address a situation or to diffuse a bad situation. So often, a customer who isn't happy will leverage social media to complain. And how long it takes your brand to respond and to diffuse the situation, I think, is a really good quantitative measure of effectiveness. From a qualitative standpoint, would be identifying someone who has a problem that might not be aware of your product or service, creating a relationship with them, building a relationship with them, and then demonstrating that customer ended up buying your product, I think, is a good qualitative way of knowing that social media is effective. The final thing I'd say is, for any business owner or business corporate executive that is listening out there, you don't really have a choice, right? You need to be part of the conversation. We're using social media as an extension of our social graph. Our friends, our family, our associates, and our followers. So that's where the conversations are taking place. You cannot, as a business, stand on the sidelines and not be part of that conversation. And the way that you and I are just talking and we're sort of playing pitch and catch, where you ask me questions and I answer, that's the same way it should be happening in social media, where we participate in sort of this give and take between two people versus, again, what traditional marketers do, which is spend a lot of time telling you why my product is better or how it differentiates. That doesn't work on social media.
So the most common mistake is that they just don't interact in the conversations, or what are other mistakes that brands do on social media?
Well, the biggest mistake is that they're not there to respond or not there to engage in a conversation. The other is, I mentioned this yesterday, is that they outsource the responsibility to someone. The example I gave yesterday was, a small business owner letting their teenage son or daughter manage it because they get it better than the older executive or the older business person. Similarly, a lot of businesses are creating a social media team with interns or with inexperienced,
it's like my parents telling me I should make a homepage for them because I'm young, so of course I know how to do a proper homepage.
Yeah, so my recommendation is that executives, that every CEO across the world really should have his or her own social media strategy. I also believe that social media teams should be reporting right into senior management or to the CEO weekly or bi-weekly with reports around key performance indicators that company wants to look at as it relates to measuring social media. And pretty much like what you asked me, some of the quantitative and qualitative ways of measuring whether or not it's effective, whatever any company decides they want to evaluate, that needs to go right up to the C team, the executive team.
But I guess maybe companies need a long time to figure out how to use social media, and so when they finally get on, it's already not so cool anymore. And they're also really afraid of failing or embarrassing themselves. Would you just say, okay, just get it on and figure it out while you do it? Or do you take a step back and hire some people who really know what they're doing? What would be the better approach?
I think most people know how to build good relationships. It takes a while. We have to spend some time getting to know one another. You're not going to want to do business with me for sure, but you may not even want to become in my inner circle or a friend of mine if I don't add value to the conversations that we're having. So I think that for anyone that's listening out there, it's about just becoming part of that conversation, and I don't think they should become intimidated by it. If they just kind of relax, they focus on what they know, and they try to add value based on their particular area of expertise. They stop measuring the vanity metrics of how many Facebook likes or how many Twitter followers you have, and they focus more on how much engagement are they getting out of their social network, out of their social graph. I think it's the real world. I mean, in everyday life, we have the most influential people are the ones who have friends and followers who engage with them the most. So I don't think it's about, geez, I need to get to 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 million followers. I think it's more about impact and engagement. And I would say that I think we're all equipped to do that. We all know how to do that in the real world. We just have to, kind of let down our guard and be real and authentic and human when it comes to our interactions online.
So most companies are failing at social media, but there are a lot of things that they can do better, and it's really possible. So let's get it on. Thank you, Kris Jones, for the interview.
Thank you.